Listen, I want to jump in and just dive into this. So one, I hope you're well. Thank you all for supporting this channel. Thank you for being here. I wouldn't be around here doing what I do, loving what I do, unless it was because of you. So thank you. You're very much loved, very much appreciated. I believe in what I'm doing here. I believe I'm good at it. And I believe that you are capable to use any of this information to give you and to get you what you want, right? So I want to talk to you about something. And it's kind of a part two to yesterday, but at the same time, it's a much more deeper dive into a different territory and a different understanding, okay? And I want to talk about the past. I want to talk about past events. I want to talk about yesterday. I want to talk about 20 years ago. I want to talk about 15 years ago. I want to talk about abusive parents. I want to talk about, abusive relationships. Should you manifest this special person that you want back in your life if they've abused you, and you feel very much like you can't live without them and all of this kind of stuff? What does that say about you? But then what does that say about the event? What does that say about the way in which you define relationships and so on and so forth? But again, it's not just that. We're gonna talk about time. We're gonna talk about circumstances. We're gonna talk about the 3D and all this kind of stuff. So, all right. So again, let's explore, right, what we understand past events to be. Because past events always have an identity. Okay, so a past event is never just about what happened. It's about who it happened to. Are you with me? So again, if you're experiencing something and you're remembering something, you're remembering a who, okay? Not the who from like Doctor Who, but you're remembering a who, right? Not from Whoville, but you're remembering a person, and that person has certain characteristics. That person, and we know we're talking about a version of you, right? Has certain beliefs, has certain ways of seeing the world, has certain behaviors, has certain values. Okay, that is the person. Hi, Neethi. Yeah, if I said that wrong, just break it down for me. Welcome to the channel. So again, we're talking about a person who's had a past experience. But remember, the past doesn't exist. Now, that does not mean your experience of some event that feels like the past didn't exist. Okay, that's not what this means. And especially when we say circumstances don't matter. What it does mean, right, is that things that can change. So when you hear things like ignore 3D or circumstances don't matter, right? Do not hear that you have to somehow push down those emotions. Do not hear, and I know many people define this in many manifestation circles, and it's caused many mental health issues. This is why I'm so adamant that we have to talk about this and out in the open, because there's so much misinformation that has actually caused more pain than not. Because people hear things like, oh, circumstances don't matter, or, oh, you know what, you should just get over it, or just force the emotions away, or distract them away, or whatever it is. That is not how manifestation works. And can you manifest off of having bad emotions that you've repressed? Of course. But guess what most likely will happen? Those emotions will find a way to come back. We don't want that. Okay, so if you are taking advice from other coaches, from other channels, from I don't care who it is, right? And they're saying, just push it down, just ignore the emotions, just whatever it is, right? Then I want you to ignore that. That's what you should be ignoring, okay? Because I don't want you to normalize having mental health issues as a normal part of being a manifester, okay? It's not normal. It's not helpful, okay? So when I say circumstances don't matter, what that means is things can change. So when you ignore 3D, it means things can change. But remember, ignoring, right? Oh, thank you very much. So ignoring means, okay, not to give meaning to, not to give your attention to. Okay, are you with me so far? So again, it means that you must get to the point where things don't have as much meaning or power to them, right, than you now are giving it, okay? And we're gonna talk about how to do that. I'm gonna give you a technique at the end of this, okay? So I'm gonna give you a grounded technique to actually help you with these issues. But again, let's talk about your past. Let's talk about your past understandings and your past experiences, all right? So, past experiences are things that have happened to you. They're stories. Now, stories don't mean necessarily that they're false, but if you keep telling them, you're going to keep living them, right? And this is what Neville says, right? If you keep telling the same stories, then you're going to keep being the same person. That's really ultimately what he's saying in his work. Are you with me? So again, you keep repeating the same story to your friends. You keep repeating the same story to your next door neighbor. You keep repeating the story in a book that you wrote about your life, right? Whatever it is, you're going to keep reliving them. Okay, you're going to keep being that person. So remember how I just said the past is about a person. The past isn't just about the event. It's about a who. It's about you, but a version of you. Okay, hear this, because a version of you means there's another version of you without that past. Okay, and so there's a really incredible technique. And again, don't forget, stay till the end. I'm going to give you an NLP technique to help you. But I also want to talk about one of Neville's techniques, which is revision. Okay, if you've never heard of this and you're new to his work, I'm going to explain this, all right? It's a very powerful technique. It's going to blow your mind if you've never heard of it, because you're going to be like, no, I don't agree with it. But I really, really want you to hear this, because if you've ever had trauma, or even if it's like something that happened yesterday, and thank you for the hearts, by the way, right? If you've ever had trauma, okay, or if yesterday you got into a fight with a loved one, or if you got a notice from your landlord saying you should be evicted in 30 days, or if you got some sort of like notice from your boss that you're going to be fired, whatever it is, right? How can you revise that? Okay, because revision. Now, let me be clear here. Revision is almost like a form of magic. Okay, it really is. This is not about just revising like some sort of, oh, I'm looking at this past event as a positive. No. Revision literally changes you, and it also literally changes anybody else involved. And yes, I do believe that. I've had firsthand experience of that more than once, and I have had other people say the very, very same thing, okay? Is that they've not just changed themselves. They've not just changed the event. They've not just changed the timeline. They've changed everybody involved and even objects in their environment, okay, and how they related to them. So hear this. Revision is not just changing your perspective on an event and looking for the positive. This changes things, okay, and it really, really does. So again, if you've ever had a bad moment, and everybody has a bad day. So Neville says, listen, you should get into the habit, one, and this is a technique right out the gate, okay? And this is actually part of my coaching program. And we call it 18 hours. Because at one point he says, listen, you want to get to the point where you can actually trace your thought pattern and begin guiding and molding and shaping your thoughts and emotions throughout the day for 18 hours. I know that sounds like a lot of work, but once you do it as a habit, it gets easier and easier and easier and easier, okay? But then what he talks about with revision, and why is revision important? Because that means time doesn't exist. That means the past doesn't exist. That doesn't mean, and that means the future also doesn't exist, right? Only the now exists. That's all you're getting. That's all you're experiencing, okay? So in that sense, we need a better definition of time, don't we? So again, time isn't a second or moment on your watch, okay? It never will be. Even quantum theorists disagree with this, right? And so the idea is that we need to understand time as a process, something that unfolds. So I'm going to give you an example of something that I manifested, and then I'm going to use this new definition of time to make sense of it for you, because I want you to start thinking and using this definition of time, because it will take away the pressure of, oh, I've got to get this manifested, and it has to do it right now. And by the way, ironically, this will help you manifest on a time crunch. So, okay, this is a really, really cool technique. So, Carlos Rovelli, he's a quantum theorist, and he has a great series of books out there. I'm a big fan of his. And so he's a scientist, quantum theorist, all this kind of stuff. And he says, listen, time isn't a second on a clock. Time isn't this. Time is a process. Okay, time is a thing that unfolds. Okay, hi, Musique. Thank you for the hearts as well, right? And so what that means is, for example, when I manifested 15 grand, okay, what I did, and this is how I manifested it, all right, is that essentially part of my process was that whenever I started seeing things unfold, I was saying, well, I know it's going to unfold. I know it's going to happen. So I had a deep confidence, right? I knew it was going to happen. But then when I ended up manifesting that amount, I also was like, oh, this is just a process to get it. Not time, not, oh my gosh, when am I going to get it? When am I not going to get it? Is there's a process. And this is just a process that it takes to get there. It's not that you're not going to get your manifestation. It's just that this is the process to get it. But do you hear the difference? It's not how long is this going to take, right? Why is it not happening? And now here also, hear how like, like, I'm sure most of you have had to like basic English, like meaning as in not being like basic English speaking. What I mean is in school, you've had to learn to write stories and stuff, right? And you're answering usually 5 things, right? The who, the what, the where, the why, the when, and the how, okay? All of those are forms and can become forms of how. Don't worry, we're gonna come back to this time as process as well, okay? But all of these can end up as forms of how. You don't want to ask how. Okay, you're gonna be tempted to because your brain wants to make sense of things. Okay, your brain's gonna wanna be like, but how? Yeah, but how? Like, wait a minute, why would this person love me? Or why would my boss gave me a raise after they were threatening to fire me? Like how? Just how? So our brain goes into how because it's trying to protect us. Okay, it's trying to make sure that we are on defense mode so that we don't end up getting hurt. There's nothing wrong with that, but be aware of that. Your ego's only one function is to protect you. That's it. That's all it was designed to do. That's all evolution designed it to do. Okay, your ego is nothing else other than a defense system, an emotional defense system. Okay, and if you're listening, then put that down, right? The ego is only an emotional defense system. The ego is only an emotional defense system. Why is that important? Especially when you're looking at time. Because why do we look at time? Because we're trying to defend ourselves. Why are we measuring? Because if we already have our desire, time doesn't matter. Do you hear the difference now? So if you have your desire in here and you believe that you've already created it, you don't need to worry about it out here. But if you are, then guess who's running the show? Not the inner man, not the inner self, not God, not whatever you want to call this, the subconscious mind. It's the outer self, right? And so if you're constantly measuring and if you're constantly calling towards time and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Oh, thank you, music, right? And so if you're constantly reliant upon measuring time, then one, you don't believe you're powerful enough in here, or that this is powerful enough to create. And then 2, you have believed the lie that you need to somehow see time as a threat. By the way, our culture teaches us that time is somehow a threat, right? We have words like aging. We have words like, oh my gosh, you're gonna run out of time. You better buy that product today, right? Or you're gonna lose your 10%. So in my field, which is behavioral science, we call that loss aversion, right? And so that means your brain doesn't wanna lose. So we need to remove that. You're not gonna lose anything. So here's a cool little anecdote, right? Since we're talking about change in the past and changing all of the events in the past, like whatever happened yesterday or 10 years ago, right? And so there's a cool little story from the Bible that actually talks about loss. Okay, this is a very, very important thing to recognize here. Because when you measure things by time, guess what? There's an option to lose something, right? Because you're like, oh, I might run out of time. Or what if like, for example, let's say you want to fall in love and you're like, yeah, but what if I'm a certain age, or society says I should be married by this age, or my religion says I should be married by this certain age, or my parents are saying this, or society and commercials and movies and all this pressure, right? All that's time. And that means you don't have it. If you constantly measure your desires by time, you'll never have them, right? But if you remove time, which, what did we say? Was just a process to get to your desire, not a moment on a clock. And I know I'm repeating myself because I really want to drill this home to you, okay? Then you begin understanding that, okay, then why do I think time is important? Well, then there could only be one reason. That time is a construct for the ego. Time is a construct. And remember, people think, oh, you're crazy in saying time doesn't exist. Oh, really? Albert Einstein said time doesn't exist, right? He says it's a persistent illusion. Again, quantum theorists say time doesn't exist, okay? But for manifestation, this is why we're unpacking this. And also, don't worry, we're gonna come back to how you can use this to revise your childhood, revise everything. We're gonna talk about a new little technique. I'm not gonna go through it fully, but if you want to, you can join my coaching program, and we actually go through what are called set point memories. These are quite literally making new memories out of nothing, okay? It's all backed by neuroscience. And oh, by the way, I'm actually doing an SP workshop, an hour and a half SP workshop. Only $85. If you bring a friend, you get 10% off, right? And I'm gonna be doing that very, very, very yes, yeah. Definitely your wife shouldn't be complaining about 2 minutes, right? Because again, that's a defense of the ego. Time is a defense of the ego. That's all it is. That means you are still then what? What? If you're constantly trying to manifest on a time crunch, and again, you can manifest on a time crunch. But what I'm saying is if you're constantly reliant upon that as your technique to manifest, you're only relying at the surface level, meaning you're only manifesting at the surface level. Okay. And this is all about techniques. Remember, my channel is about advanced, not about, oh, let's just do basic. I want you guys to get to the point where you're like, I know I'm freaking God and I know I can do this on a second. But the major issues is there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion out there. So again, just really quickly, back to this thing about this little crass commercial thing. Again, if you want to join, hit me up on here or wherever, and you can sign up. There's a wait list, but you can still get in. It's really popular because it's an hour and a half workshop where we go through everything, going through how to manifest an SP, how to work with limiting belief. You get Q&A with me, you get a workbook, everything like that. And it's only $85. Again, if you bring somebody with you, it's 10% off, right? So again, back to this, because this is all about value. So again, what I want to do is back to this idea of time, but time as an ego construct. Not time as real, time as an ego construct. Every time you're in ego, you're in loss. Okay, this is why you got to learn how to operate from here. Okay, now now let me say, ego is not the same as the person. Ego is like a shield. Okay, ego is, yes, it can help form the person, but you, as in the person with a name and the history and all this kind of stuff, are formed very much by the ego. But the ego is all developed by time, okay? Music. So I do have one-to-one group coaching. Yes, that is a program that is actually really popular as well. So if you are interested, would love to invite you to join. Loads of people like you that are there, that are looking for the same thing. But we're always taking this to the next advanced level, right? So yeah, would love to have you and anybody else. Now, time is ego construct. Okay. Now, if you're constantly measuring, then that means you're measuring from I don't have. Why would you measure? Because if you already have it in here, you don't need to measure it, right? But now there's a cool story from Scripture. Okay. Now remember, the Bible was not written as a religious document. It was written to anybody. You don't have to believe in a religion to understand what the Bible's talking about. When you understand it's talking to the inner self. It's not talking to the ego, it's talking to the inner self. And it's a guidebook. In fact, I'm going to be doing a Bible study that breaks this all down, okay? And no, I'm not a Christian, so I'm an atheist. So I'm not teaching this, but yes, I've trained in Hebrew and Greek and Ugarit and Aramaic, and I've taken 3 or 4 years of Kabbalah, right? Got to hang out with some rabbis, so I do know my stuff. And most of what the Bible's written to, when it's written and understood this way, is actually written to the inner self, but as a guidebook and also filled with techniques and strategies. So, and I'm going to give you one now from this story that you already know. You may have even heard me talk about this before, but this is the story of the 99 sheep. If you've never heard of, it's the story of 100 sheep. Now, in a Hebrew numerology, that means everything's fine. Everything's perfect. You're satisfied. Everything's complete. And then one goes away, okay? Now, in, again, Hebrew numerology, that means something's wrong, okay? Something has happened in the story that we need to pay attention to, all right? And so when we're understanding that sheep are symbols of desire, okay? Sheep are symbols, okay? Then that means when Jesus, who is your imagination, and an actual historical person who died on a cross, right, but is your imagination, as the imagination, he goes and gets your desire, okay? So that means there's no such thing as a lost desire. So let's say yesterday you get into a fight with a loved one or an SP or whoever it is, and you think, oh, that's a lost moment. No, there isn't a lost moment. This is why we need to understand that the ego, because why? The ego wants to see it as a lost moment, because then what are you going to do? you're going to then default to live from, believe from, and use all your inner resources, mental. When I say inner resources, I'm talking about your time, your energy, your interpretations, and your beliefs. You're going to now use all of those time and energy and beliefs to what? Form a new version of a self that is protected. Are you with me? Right? So then again, and this could happen when you were abused, when you were 17 or whatever it is. And by the way, none of that is cool. None of that is awesome. I'm not saying anything about that. And I'm also not saying it didn't exist. What I'm saying is that those events created a version of you that you no longer want to live, and that other people around you don't deserve you being, and you don't deserve yourself being, right? You want to be the best version of yourself, right? So again, and if you know, and I disagree with people in these communities who are like, well, just get over it or just ignore it. No. Even Neville disagreed with that. He says that we're an emotional filter. What does an emotional filter do? It filters what? Emotions. So that means we have to deal with these emotions, okay? Now, back to this idea of time and time as an ego construct. All right, so if time is an ego construct and we're constantly measuring, I don't have it. Or again, if you feel like unloved because you had this fight yesterday, guess what? If you feel unloved, that's an ego construct. Because the true nature of the inner self is that you are always loved. The true nature of your inner self is that you are not a person who deserves to be abused. You are not a person who deserves to be in a relationship with somebody who mistreats you, right? And so I'm gonna talk about something very controversial right now. And even though as a coach, I try to be as objective as possible, which means if you come to me and ask me for help, right, then I'm not going to really judge you based on what you're asking me, okay? But at the same time, what I do see, especially when people are trying to manifest other people back into their lives, usually like a special person or an SP, right? They'll say, oh, well, this person abused me, or this person's totally neglectful, but I love them, right? And I get that we think we love them. Okay, but remember, what does the Bible say about love? Love is the death of the ego. Okay, this is literally the highest form of love that we're told of in Scripture. Okay, it's called agape. In fact, it's actually not even a scriptural idea, it's from the Greeks. Okay, but really when you take it to the root word, the root idea, it is the absolution of the ego. That means you are not relying on this outward protective self. And if you feel like you're still in a relationship where you're trying to manifest somebody back, that you're like, yeah, but I love them. Yeah, but is that love? Because if you felt like you needed to protect yourself from them, that's building out your ego. That's not building out the inner self, that's building out your ego. And so you're forming more of your personality around self-protection rather than growth. Does that make sense? And so, you know, this is one of the things that we're going to be dealing with in this SP workshop, how to do with that, how to heal from it, what things can we do to actually ensure that we can manifest somebody who loves us, and what does that mean, you know, and all of this kind of stuff. Because I do think our understanding of love is extremely one-sided and unhelpful because we rely on things like romantic comedies to tell us what love is, right? And that's a really, really bad way of understanding love. You cannot base love on a romantic comedy, right? And so, and when you do, then you put pressure on yourself and others because, right, we live out our beliefs. We live out of states, Neville says. That means we live out of our beliefs, okay? And so if you're like, yeah, but this person isn't acting this way, but I need them to act this way, and I'm going to try to make them conform. And so, again, if you're constantly using the imagination to make others conform, do you really love them? Right? And so, again, and I know I'm throwing out some hard stuff right now for some people to hear. But again, this is all about time. This is all about time manifestation, and can you manifest and use revision? And then how do you use revision? So yes, you can use revision. Okay, so again, if you get into a disagreement, if you get into a fight, how do you do it? Well, and this is from firsthand experience, right? You have to walk in the assumption that that never happened, okay? And for you, maybe if you're hypersensitive, for example, if you're emotionally sensitive or emotionally aware, that means that you might have to essentially walk in the assumption that you're healed and walk in the assumption that that event didn't happen, of course, but then how would you be? So that means, and both of mine manifested within 24 hours, no joke, actually 12 hours, okay? That to the point where this person actually argued, this is funny, argued with me that the argument never happened because I was trying to say to them, yes, it did, right? But that I had manifested it when they were like, no, we never did it. So again, remember, revision changes people, it changes events, it changes moments, and it changes everything in that event, okay? So again, right, you can change the past. The past is changeable. That's what really, if you want to understand revision, that's what it is. There's no such thing as the past. That's what it is. It's not that that event didn't happen, but that there's no such thing as the past, right? Because you are being that person now. So revision is saying, I'm no longer that person now. Okay, so again, if you are the person, for example, that got fired yesterday and you want that job back, then you walk today as if you still have that job. You may be lounging around your apartment, but you walk in the emotion and conviction of, yes, I know I have this job. And then lo and behold, it might take a day, it might take a week, but then your boss will be like, hey, we really need somebody and you're the only one who's capable of doing this, right? And then you can say, okay, pay me $1 billion, right? So again, revision does change things, but the first thing that you have to let go of is this idea that time matters. Time doesn't matter. Why? Because what is matter? Matter is solid. Matter is an object, right? So matter is something that you can actually feel. Matter is something that you can actually point to, right? Time doesn't matter. That's another way to understand this. Not that it doesn't just matter or have value, is that essentially time doesn't matter. It doesn't have matter, right? It only has matter when we react to it, when we respond to it. In fact, just because we can see it on the clock doesn't even prove that time exists, right? It just means we've all agreed upon it. In philosophy, that's called intersubjectivity, right? It just means that we agreed upon the idea, okay? So, that's what I kind of wanted to deal with today. And I wanted to give you a tip from NLP, okay? Because this is a great way in which to ensure that time doesn't take away anything. But you know, what I was just reminded of is I want to tell you more about the lost sheep, okay? Because once we go into the lost sheep, you're going to understand this even more. So again, the whole story of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost sheep, is essentially, again, about loss. And according to this parable, there is no loss. Loss doesn't exist. In fact, Neville actually echoes that. And he says, loss doesn't exist except just the belief in loss. Okay? Loss does not exist except that you believe in it. Okay? And that's a very powerful phrase to hear from him. But he got that from this story. Loss does not exist. Or even the more famous story about the prodigal son, right? And he runs away. There is no lost son. Why? Because the son returns, right? Because the son wakes up and it comes back. It becomes aware and it returns. And that's like your desires. They become aware as you become aware of them, right? And that's time, according to, right? That's time. According to quantum theory, time is measurement or a process, okay? So what you want to do is you want to take your measurement away from what you don't have, and you want to now be pushing the measurement or the focus or the attention, because that's how you bring time into this, right? And I don't mean time as in it's going to take time. I'm saying that's how you end up guiding time. That's how you end up controlling time, by actually using your attention as a way to measure what you want from the perspective of what you want. So again, let's do this practical, and then I'm gonna give you that tip. Let's go back to this idea that we've been talking about this person who lost their job. So their attention is gonna wanna be on, I don't have a job. Look at, I'm here. I'm in my apartment. I'm lounging around. I don't have my suit on. I don't have, my pencils at my desk. I don't have, everything's here, right? So I lost my job. So that's measuring, that's time, because the ego wants to measure the time because it wants to protect you so that it doesn't happen again. Okay, again, your ego's not the enemy. It's just doing what it's supposed to do, all right? But at the same time, what you're doing is you're now, and we're going to do this in the NLP technique I'm going to teach you in a minute, is that you essentially... sorry, and I'm just thinking it through. I don't want it to be too confusing. Is that when we talk about this idea of this person at the apartment, you begin taking your measurement away. You begin taking your focus away, right? And you begin taking the energy away from, okay, I don't have my job. So you take all of your energy away and the measurement away, which is actually taking time away. They're taking the process away of what just happened. Okay, you're removing all of those things by taking your attention away, And so now what you're doing is you're using attention as a way in which to grow your new situation, which is you already have your job or you have a better job, whatever it is that you want. So then you use your attention, you use it in here, but then you protect it out here. You start saying, okay, you know what? That happened. Okay. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything because I know I have a job that I want, and I know I have a job that I deserve, and I know that I have a job that is for me, right? And I know I have a job that's actually seeking me out, and I know I have a job that triples my income, right? And Neville has loads of stories of this happening, right? And he even says, like, hey, if you were trying to manifest a bigger income and you came to him the next day and said that you lost your job, it wouldn't surprise him because that current job wasn't going to get you to where you were going to go, right? And so we have to look at these circumstances, one, as impermanent. They're not permanent. And because the problem is that we tie them to our ego. We tie them to our identity, right? And then we think that's who we are. Then we make decisions based out of those traumatic experiences, okay? So that's why you want to revise these moments. That's why at the end of every single day, and this is something I am giving to you as a routine, do this nightly. Go through your whole day, and revise it to the best version of that day, okay? Do this until you die, every single day. This is what Neville did, right? And so you revise everything. And here's the cool thing. Revision isn't just for bad stuff. Revise the good stuff. So if you had a really good moment that day, 10 times it. Make it even brighter, to make it better, make it more powerful, okay? And so revision isn't just for bad things. Revision can be for good, okay? But start this today, start this tonight, okay? Go through your day, and if it helps you, write it down. What would you have revised? What would you be revising, right? Even down to the last minute of you stepping into bed. Whatever it is, revise it. Maybe that's because you want to be in a bed with Egyptian cotton. It doesn't matter what it is. Imagine it's the best bed you've ever stepped foot in, right? Whatever it is, right? You always want to amplify everything. And so when we're talking about time, okay, and we're talking about circumstances don't matter, all that I want you to hear is that nothing is permanent. So again, everything you're going to do, because the what? What is the ego's job? To protect you. So what is it going to want to do to an event that feels like a threat? It's going to want to make it seem permanent. Why? Because it wants to protect you from ever having that event be experienced again, or another event like it. Okay. So again, to overcome this, you have to use courage, right? You have to use it. And neuroscience shows that courage is a switch in the brain. Okay. And so you turn it on the more you use it, the more that you use it, the more that you use it, right? And so it is courageous. This is why Neville says, I dare you to assume, right? Do you remember that? So I dare you, right? He's daring you. Why? Because if you dare, and if you follow through with a dare, you have to leave everything that you once had before that dare existed. You have to give up all of the fear. You have to give up all of the anger. You have to give up all of the whatever story that you're holding on to actually move into the new self that has whatever it is that you want, that has that person in your life, that has the house, has the car, has the fame, whatever, right? So again, keep that in the back of your mind. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to use this technique, okay? And again, I go into way more detail in my group coaching. So again, if you're looking for group coaching, if you're looking for anything along those lines, either join my Discord group, which is, there's a link in my bio, right? And again, like I said earlier, I am going to be, I already offer one-to-one coaching. I also offer a free supportive group, but I also am now doing an hour-and-a-half workshop where we're going to deep dive into psychology, but also manifestation, and you're gonna get a workbook, all this kind of stuff for about $85. You and I can hang out with a group of other people like you who are wanting to manifest an SP, or whether it be a new one or one back or whatever it is. We're gonna talk about everything with love, all this kind of stuff, and you're gonna have that support as well. So again, make sure that you jump in on that call. That's gonna be next week. So we already have signups already, and I like to limit my groups because I don't like too many people. So, you know, I think we have about like 3 or 4 more spots left. So make sure that you get in touch soon, because there may not be any opportunity for you to do that. But let's talk about this NLP technique. So it's called a submodality switch. Okay, so this is a really cool technique. All right, so the submodality switch is taking an event that happened, let's say yesterday or 2 weeks ago or 20 years ago, whatever it is that you want to change. And this is actually very similar to what Neville did with his revision technique, but this one's a little bit more powerful. This is like his revision technique on crack. All right, so again, if it's a traumatic moment, if it's like, oh, I couldn't pay my bills last week, guess what? Revise that you did, right? And you're like, oh wait, I was less confident when I went on stage last week and it didn't work out the way I wanted to. Okay, revise that, right? Because remember, who is it revising? You. You're revising a who, right? So here's the submodality switch. I want you to take the scene, okay? And this is very similar, a little bit similar to yesterday, but a little bit more detailed. And so what you're doing is you're taking the scene, okay? And the submodality means like sounds and touch and all of the senses, all the five senses, okay? And I want you to feel the event, and I want you to feel this event, okay? And I want you to go through this event that you didn't want to experience. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but don't worry, it's all gonna make sense, okay? Now, again, this is a little bit different than yesterday's. So what it is I want you to take that scene, okay? And it could be a scene where you got rejected, a scene where people got angry at you, a scene where your boss fired you, whatever. Feel it. And if there's touch involved, then amplify the touch. If there's sounds, amplify the sound. If you're walking, then feel your feet hitting your shoe and the shoe hitting the ground. Feel it. Full on experience this. This is how you use this NLP technique to heal, okay? And I want you to amplify everything, okay? And then I want you to amplify it. But while you're feeling this, where are you feeling it? This is very key. This next step right here this is why it's different than yesterday's. Where are you feeling it? Where are you feeling the tension? Where are you feeling the anger? Where are you feeling the upset? Where are you feeling the rejection? Okay, and amplify it, feel it. Okay, and even if it makes you cry, don't worry, because this is actually getting rid of those emotions that Neville says we should get rid of. Okay, and I want you to feel it. Okay, but then what I want you to do is then I want you to then, since you've already used those little knobs, if you followed me, you know what the knobs are, right? And so you turn it up with a knob, you amplify the touch, you amplify the feeling, you amplify the rejection, you amplify it. Then what I want you to do is I want you to feel it in your body, okay? I want you to feel where, because everybody has stress differently in their body, okay? Is it your chest? Is it your shoulders? Is it your knees? Is it your teeth? Is it your feet? Is it your fingernails? Wherever it is, okay? Feel that. And what I want you to do is I want you to now slowly turn it down. Okay, turn it down, turn it down, turn it down, turn it down, turn it down. Okay, turn it down, turn everything down, turn it down, turn the feelings, turn it, okay? And then now I either want you to create, and then what I want you to do, and this is gonna be hilarious. If it was your boss, for example, or a boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever it was, okay? I want you to make their voice really squeaky. And I'm talking about like cartoonish, funny squeaky. I'm talking about like, hi, I'm so mad at you right now. And then I want to make you and your voice like very squeaky, right? And again, so if there's a person involved, then make their voices cartoonishly funny, like to the point where you're almost like crying, laughing. Okay, so hear that in this scene while you're doing this, okay? And again, amplify it, make it so loud, make it sound like they just sucked on a balloon, okay? And it is so funny. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take everything that you just amplified, okay? And I want you to still watch your body, where you're feeling everything in your body. Because once you start feeling it where it's felt, like as in if you felt it like, okay, in your shoulders, okay? And then what I want you to do is I want you to amplify the Mickey Mouse squeak in your voice and in the other person's voice. How funny does that feel? How unreal does that feel? How meaningless does that feel? How cartoonish does it feel, right? And then I want you to start feeling where the stress is starting to leave your body, okay? This is very, very important, right? So then I want you to start feeling it release, but then by doing so, when you're doing that, I want you to start removing the color like we did yesterday, but this time I want you to make everything small. So if it was another person making fun of you, whatever it was, make them literally like Mike TV from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory small, like tabletop small, like this small, because there's a table right here. Right? Like to that point, okay? And then I want you to start basically slowly moving that scene away, slowly moving that scene away, slowly moving that scene away. Now what I want you to do is I want you to create an anchor, Okay, as soon as you move that away, okay, you can use this as this is the go-to anchor, right? If you followed me, then you know what this is referring to. You press that down. As soon as you feel that relief, okay? And then you can, after this, go in and create another scene where everything went the way that you want it. But this is how you get rid of stress. This is how you get rid of that past event. This is how you start detaching. This is how you start de-emotionalizing. And this is how you start removing emotional connection to an event that you never wanted to happen. Okay, that's and by the way, of course, you want to do this every day. So again, you create that scene, and again, you can actually do it as a dance. So every time you dance, and what you want to do is you want to use this trigger every single time that you feel rejection. So like, let's say if it was like you felt rejection when your boss fired you. This can be used, this little technique that I just taught you can be used for any type of rejection, okay? So then give yourself a bodily trigger, a bodily anchor. So like this, again, you can use that, right? But again, you're rehearsing this day in and day out. You're not just doing this once, because what you're doing is you're embedding this into your mind, right? As the trigger of, oh, I feel fine. This is great. I can totally deal with this, right? Whatever it is, but then you're also wanting to go in and replace it with a new memory, okay? And that's what you're doing when you're creating these scenes. Scenes are memories, memories are scenes, okay? And that's what you're doing. But what you want to do is you want to make the scene as cartoonish and funny and small and squeaky as possible. And then you want to feel the relief as you're doing this, like, ah, that was so funny. Like, I don't even know what the heck happened because that didn't even happen, right? And you start disassociating with it, okay? And then you give yourself a little dance move, or you can even give yourself a word like funny, or you can give yourself a trigger word, which is like, that's ludicrous. So every time that you hear that word, and this is like self-hypnosis, by the way, every time that you hear that word, it triggers, oh, that's not a big deal, whatever, right? So it doesn't have to be this if you don't want to use this, right? You can use anything that you want, and it could be a physical gesture. It could be like, hey, what's up, right? And so then lo and behold, if I ever meet you and I see you doing this, then I know that that's your anchor, okay? So you want to be able to do this on a regular basis, okay? And the more that you do this, whatever you choose, whether, and it can be an image. It could be like, all right, I'm in Tahiti. So every time somebody makes you feel rejected, think of Tahiti, whatever it is, and then that'll bring the relief back in, okay? Are you with me? So, hope this was helpful. Don't forget to join the coaching program, the free Discord group, the SP workshop that's happening this coming week. Make sure that you join that, $85. It's really cheap. I do accept payment programs. Much love to you guys all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all your support. I'll be on again tomorrow. So again, don't forget, I have a private one-to-one coaching group as well. You get access to me, other people like you, and you get free workbooks and loads of value. So much love to you guys all. Be safe in the world, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.